Steven, I've got the weight of the world of supporting You Can't Disappoint a Podcast on my shoulders, and I thought maybe, just maybe, to lighten the load on my back, we could give our fellow listeners and enjoyers of You Can't Disappoint a Podcast some ways to help us out. What do you think?
Well, I'm not normally in the habit of lightening the load on your back, but, if people want to help us, they sure can. How can they do that, Zach?
The first way is to support us on Patreon. If you like what we do here and want to help us take it further and get all kinds of extra content, give us money at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast.
If you don't want to bear the brunt of our debt, you can appreciate the fruit that we bear to you by going and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Yelp, Google Chrome podcast reviewer, or whatever you can. And that's going to help us get seen. And the more people see us, the more that we want to be seen, and the more that we see you.
You can also hang out with us on social media every week over on Facebook, Instagram at Can't Disappoint Podcast, and Twitter at You Can't Disapod. Also, go ahead and give a subscribe and thumbs up to our YouTube channel, where we also post the podcast every week.
If you want to hold our hands as we walk down this community memory lane, you should shoot us an email over at can'tdisappointpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us your MVP, your favorite funniest moment, and trivia for the episode we're about to record, and we'll read it live on the air.
Yeah, we don't do the show live, but nice try, buddy. Thanks for supporting us, and let's get into this week's podcast. That's funny, Steven. I was telling someone the other day how when I edit our podcast, I'm like, I should listen to Steven more. He's got some good points in here. I'm so hyper fixated on getting through all this stuff in a relatively normal period of time that I go back and wow, Steven had some good thoughts on this one.
It's crazy what you miss. I'll say something that I think is great for the conversation, and Zach's like, yeah, so there's this next scene, and I'm like
Steven, it feels like graduation day. I am wearing a cap and gown, nothing underneath it, because it feels like we've graduated into the next plane of our existence on this podcast. Yes? No? Am I wrong?
Well, some of us are graduating, Zach, and some aren't. I've elected to take a gap year, and with that gap, I will be staying in school to pass the classes I did not pass.
Hello, welcome to You Can't Disappoint a Podcast, everyone.
1, 2,
a special
3, go.
Season 3 Roundtable edition. I'm Zach, and I can't wait to see Steven's gap.
I'm Steven, and I clearly misread the dress code for today. I see now that it says cap and gown. Not Gap and Brown. So I have made a mistake. I'm embarrassed, but you know what? Fashion is forever, and I'm just going to keep on moving forward. Hey, Zach, how you doing, buddy?
Meet the Robinsons. Keep moving forward. I'm doing great. I'm very excited. Everyone, hush. The crowd is at a murmur because everyone's excited for our special guest to come out and discuss Season 3 of Community at large one last time before we move into Season 4. But before we do that, we've got to start off the show as always by shouting out our $10 and up patrons at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. Those people are Danny M. Lugo, Mary Baker Budisa, and Brian Thurman. Starting at $5, you can support us over there, get all literally over a day's worth of exclusive content, and you get to watch our live stream that we do before the podcast every week, and you get to help move this show forward. So if you like what we do here, check us out, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. And also a shout out to the man of the hour whose dulcet tones will be tickling your tulips in just mere moments. Our community papa at Communiess on Twitter. They're on the show today along with a couple other greats, and we're glad to have him around for his support and for today's podcast.
I love that our dad could make it to this graduation because he missed every other one we've had. So better late than never.
There've been a lot.
I mean,
for
there
some
was
reason.
kindergarten,
second kindergarten.
Yeah, there was Kindergarten Alcoholics Anonymous. That one was a little less fun than you'd think.
Then pretty typical grade school, third kindergarten, middle school, church camp, altar boy camp, fourth.
That one was
kindergarten.
fun. Eventful at the least.
Well, anyway, let's not push this back any further. We're already descending into madness. I'm excited for it. We're going to dive right into our Season 3 roundtable discussion with some of our favorite people from the Community fandom before we put this thing to bed and move on to Season 4. The waters are rough and rocky ahead, but are you ready to seize that water? I don't know. Are you ready?
Are you ready? I feel like that's like a WWE intro. Can you say that again?
I don't know.
And I'll pick a different guitar riff.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Steven, we're ready. We're going to do this. It's going to be fun. And stick around after the show. We're going to talk about how you can get involved with next week's season premiere. And Steven's going to show nipples, so don't turn it off.
Heyo!
All right, let's go. Steven, press the big, comically large play button that kicks off the roundtable.
All right, my finger's descending
Yeah.
towards the button.
Yeah, I hear the...
Oh no, I hit the self-destruct button, Zach.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Podcast over forever.
Quick, Zach, hit your don't self-destruct button.
And I'm just going to put it there. I don't want to play along with that anymore. All right, hello. Welcome to our Season 3 Roundtable. I am super excited for this panel of great community podcasters and voices to discuss Season 3 as a whole with us. And with us, we've got Alex from 6 Seasons in a Podcast. How you doing, man? Welcome back.
Good. I'm excited to talk about the whole.
Yeah, we're gonna, the whole discussed at large today.
You know,
Glad to have
there's
you as
a hole
always.
or a gap. It works great.
Hey, Alex, what's new in the world of 6 Seasons in a Podcast?
Funny you should ask,
Yeah.
Zach. I feel like that's a setup. You, sir,
What?
were on my podcast, and
Yes,
which
I
is going to
was.
be out very soon. And we interviewed the fabulous. I don't know. They don't call him that in the show. So I don't
No,
know.
but he was.
He's not fabulous.
illustrious.
He just needed help.
Yeah, he needed help. Eric Charles Nielsen, who played Garrett, we interviewed him, and he was awesome. He was as wonderful and neurotic and lovely as you'd hope he'd be.
It was really fun, and it was a real, like, honest human conversation with them, which I thought was really, really cool. Really nice.
Well, I have
Also-
a question
yeah.
for you guys. I know that, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but, like, has he been saved?
I think we saved Garrett.
You did?
I think we helped. I don't
I
think he's
think
any
he
worse off than he was before.
Did we though?
That saved Garrett? No, that no.
So going around the circle, we've also got our proud Papa. We've got Matt from
Not their
Communiess,
father.
Adio.
the man who, without none
Not
of us
their
would be here,
father.
right? And we're
And
very
we
glad
got
to
on a
have you.
t-shirt. Hashtag not their father.
Yeah, hashtag not their father.
We'll send Matt.
I
a
don't
bunch
do
of them. I'm
hashtag.
sure he'd love
Yeah.
that. Well,
Hey, guys.
I'm glad to have you. You mentioned last time that we did an interview with you that you wanted to be on more often to discuss actual episodes of Community. So
I
I'm
did
glad
not
to have you to talk about some. You said
Did
that.
I said in general about all the
jest.
podcasts. I can
Not
talk
us.
about not you alone. I
No, I
just
think
like
we're
talking
special.
about Community.
That's
You
what I
are
meant. I didn't mean us
special.
alone.
Aw.
But
you.
not that way.
The audio listeners won't get the thumb quote.
Yeah, I
finger
put air quotes
quotations you
on
just
You
did.
heard
one
it here
side of it.
first, folks. Our dad thinks we're special.
This is triple quotes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got to use your thumbs, apparently.
You're special.
Yeah, plays super well. And we've also got, for the first time on this show, we've got Jenn from the Community Rewatch podcast.
Hey.
I'm excited to have you here. And since I haven't really heard from you before, how did you first get into Community, and how did you get into podcasting about it?
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So I started watching Community back when it was airing in season 2. I like to tell the story of how my friend texted me after the season 1 finale and was like, Jen, you need to watch this show. And it's weird because I was watching all the other shows on like the NBC lineup except for Community. I don't know why. Maybe my schedule was just like, whatever. But I started watching live in season 2, caught up between the gap between season 1 and season 2, and then by season 3, I had my own like little website, really like a blog, and I was
Cool.
like, oh, maybe I should like start writing reviews of Community. And I texted Jamie, who's been on our show, and I'm like, Jamie, if I wrote this, would you read it? And she's like, of
Nice.
course. And I was like, she's the only person who's gonna read my thoughts on Community. fast forward to Geography of Global Conflict, and I randomly, on a whim at work, tweeted the link to the review to Dan Harmon, and I was like, nothing will happen. And I went back to work, and then I came back to Twitter, and I saw that Dan Harmon had responded to my tweet and read my review.
Wow.
He said, I just devoured that at an airport bar. It was exactly what I needed. Great review, kiddo.
Whoa,
and
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden people from Community kind of like, the fandom started following me, so I was like, I guess I write Community reviews now. Awesome. So I did that all the way up until the show ended in the Yahoo season. So
was that your first review that you wrote?
Why did you stop reviewing it? That's why the show stopped.
It just ended. I mean, I'm sorry. I thought you don't even know, I mean, everyone knows who was in the fandom at that time, but like, I thought every review of the season finale I was going to write was going to be my last. And sure enough, we just kept coming back. That was the first. Yeah, it was the first TV. I mean, I had done Biology 101 right before it, but it was the first time I had reviewed TV shows because I was like, So I credit Community with like being able to think critically because I was following like Emily Vanderwerf and like Alan Sepinwall at the time, and they were reviewing Community, and
AV Club back in the day was where it was at.
The community reviews and the comment section was definitely where it was at. I reviewed it up until the show ended. I started getting nostalgic for it right before the Vulture reunion panel, which obviously happened like 2 years ago. And I was like, man, I miss the show. I miss the friends that I made and the fandom days. Like, you know, I wonder if I did a podcast, like a mini podcast about it, if anyone would listen. And Chelsea was like, hey, I'll be your audio editor. And so she signed up for it without ever sight unseen. So we just started. That was this is my first ever podcast journey too. And that was almost 2 years ago at this point. So
that's awesome.
That's
one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, I didn't know that Welcome to Greendale was out there, but they were out there. I thought, for sure. I was like, I'm the only person that would have had this idea. And Alex can attest to this, because you were around the same time, too.
Yep.
And I was the same time, and Michael and Jillian were about the same time. And they're like, no one else is going to talk about this show. No one was talking about it 10 years ago, so who would want to talk about it in 2020?
I tweeted about there being 4 community podcasts at some point a couple of years ago, and Michael and Gillian goes, nope, there's 5. I didn't know they were there. There was 6. There was actually 6, one that they were following and never said anything for a long time. We had them on when we talked to Andy last year, drinking with Community.
Then a year or so later, like 25 people all woke up and was like, a community podcast. What a great idea.
No one's doing that.
There can't be any, right?
No one. Yeah, so that's how it all started.
That's awesome. I didn't know that story about getting in with the cast that way.
That's so
I'm
cool.
sure the
Well,
podcast has been a great way to nurture that even further.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a long story, but like I met Joel in person one time thanks to Twitter.
Wow.
But yeah, no, it was weird because I did not expect Dan to respond because he wasn't reading reviews. He was very adamant about like, I'm not reading reviews of the show. And so to see that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So it was cool. It's a good way to get it off the ground. My site ended up being able to, like, we've gone to Comic-Con as press because of that. So that's kind of what flourished and started the whole site. So it's been a journey. Thanks, Community.
For real. Look at all the things Community has done for all of us here and all the people that it has brought together. It really is incredible. All the people that I've met through it and through this. But let's move on to season 3. Let's talk about it. Jenn, I'll use you as a segue because I was really excited that you said season 3 is your favorite season of Community because we've just spent the last 22 weeks going through it. And honestly, like it's not off of this rewatch our favorite season of Community. And I'm really, really glad to have that conversation because I'm totally open to being persuaded. Alex, Matt, how do you guys feel about it just off the top? As a season as a whole, when you're talking about it compared to the first 2 seasons and especially the heights of the second season, and then it being kind of the last season of original Community, how do you feel about it? Like, well, you made a face when I said that, Matt. Not original Community, but the last season before the show went through so many behind-the-scenes changes consistently that it can't help but be a little bit different. Yes, Chang is, I guess.
So bad.
He did say it. I wasn't making a joke.
I know.
No, I make faces whenever I listen to your podcast.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, no, I have a terrible habit of everybody that does reviews. I kind of send them messages. Jen probably gets the least because she's already heard most of my
Because
complaints.
I'm
or
the
things.
best. Oh, just kidding. Sorry, I'm the favorite. Is that what you were saying, Matt? Go on.
I was writing on your website comments to
You were.
episodes, so
You
I've
were.
already
Wow.
been there, done that.
No, it's
so
true.
I feel
Yeah,
like,
he was.
He
yeah.
said his piece.
So
He just writes to the people that talk badly about the show sometimes.
no. Jen's
Man, I
Okay.
Jen,
Okay.
Jen wrote about season 6. She hated season 6. So
Wow.
no, I heard people not liking my show a lot. No, I don't think it is the last the hurrah basically of it. It is the last of the long seasons where they have a time to do an arc. You see when they try to do arcs later, it doesn't work the same.
Yeah.
4 and 5 don't have good season-long arcs. They do have better arcs, particularly in season 2. Season 3, they're kind of forced upon them to have a somewhat of an arc. They're kind of required to have a bit of it. So, and they also had to figure out what to do with Chang after after season 2. So how do you work him in? And they just go crazy with it.
Yes.
I listened to all of your episodes actually because I finished the last one today.
Which literally came out today as we're recording.
Yeah, that's what you do when you run the Communities account. You can't just recommend stuff and not listen to it. So
You could,
sometimes
I
I
respect
listen at
that you
a
don't.
1.5, but in the speed rail. But no, it's a better season than probably all the others except for 2. 2's probably the one that most people would say this is the pinnacle of Community, is what they pull off in season 2. But season 3's right there for me. I don't put that much of a barrier. I think 1's right there too. I do think this is the first 3 seasons are overall the best as full seasons go. But I don't dislike season 3. I enjoyed season 3. I liked everything that they did. There's episodes where I don't enjoy it as much, of course, but it's not. I'm not super negative about it because it's a really still a
More
great
Community is good community.
It has the
I
best
get it.
episode of television I've ever seen in it.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to
Fair
go.
enough.
Well, this
that's what I
season
was
was
kind of
underwhelming.
thinking through saying that when we
Basic
when you
Basic
Lupine
lupine
urology?
urology, right? Is that what
No.
we're talking about?
But it's really close.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
but
I just didn't make the joke very well because I can't speak.
like what we all say is I don't know, we talk about the show every week, so it makes it easy to fixate and criticize when I didn't do it before doing this type of thing. But like a season of Community that I think is a few steps below others is still, like we always say, like miles above anything else. So it's my complaints don't mean a lot, but I do think it's a slightly more uneven season. I think what you say about the arcs is true. I think quite a few of the characters get hints of arcs, but don't really get satisfying arcs. I feel like the season goes really broad and cartoony, but without sorry, Matt, but without like
watching Matt
I know this
struggle.
is fun.
So hard.
Where season 2 was broad like that too, but it always had something a little more real and human at the core of it, I think, where season 3 tends to go for like style over substance for me, maybe.
I think that they did a lot of really good things in season 3 with some characters in terms of like their growth and their development and
I
their,
do
like
too.
growing, but then some characters, just for the sake of having a plot with them, they regress back to season 1. And that
Fun
is
fact,
my-
this is a theme amongst Community.
Ooh.
All right, but I want to point out that the growth is not really in the plan. That was never part of the plan. There are things they
Sure.
do to complete stories, like the air conditioning repair. But everything else is service of the story. And so it's the thing, I don't want to take it away from anybody, but there is no long-term plan for Community for the long arcs except for the graduation of Jeff. That's as far as they really thought it through.
A lot of people just made the faces you made while I was talking.
Yeah. I mean, but go listen to Dan
I
talk
believe
about
you.
it during the
I
first
think you're
3
right.
seasons. And what he's talking about is when Dan was on Channel 101, basically they had these crazy scenarios and had the same actors doing it. And if you've ever watched any of it, it's insanely funny, but it doesn't have a good connection, doesn't have a good core to it. It doesn't have the heart the Community does. What he figured out in Community was keep the same people being the same 7 people with the same 7 flaws. or major flaws and tell a story through them and let them go through the crazy scenario. Let them have a chicken bus. Let them have alternative timelines and explore them as they are. But they don't really move them forward. Even Joel said at one point, he didn't understand the character until he finally figured out he was talking to Dan and goes, oh, so he doesn't really learn anything. And that's the answer to most questions. He has moments of clarity, but he doesn't really learn anything. And so these ideas that there's an end game related to Community, the end game is about Jeff, ultimately, whatever the story is. It's about the state of Jeff. And that's why we end up with underserviced characters, particularly if you're looking for a narrative or an arc to their life. There isn't one. It's in the service of telling the story about Jeff.
So why are you the one that doesn't have a podcast?
Yeah, I know, right? You sound like me, but more eloquent.
Why
because
am I the one with a podcast?
I'll tell you the real easy answer. The moment Mike and I talked about it, there were already 8 of you.
Like too much effort.
And we both
You didn't
said,
want to blow us all away.
Yeah.
No. It was about we can't if we started talking about Community, because Mike talks about it in a different way than I do in great depth. He's the other guy on the Community account. He's a wonderful human being. When we talk about it, if we did a podcast while y'all were doing a podcast, it would be really hard to promote you and promote ourselves at the same time and not have not where it comes across as, and here are these other people talking about the stuff we just talked about last week.
It's the reason why I didn't read Alan Sepinwall and Emily's reviews until after I had written mine, because I didn't want to accidentally be influenced or repeat the same things on purpose.
And I'll openly say it's the reason why I love doing things like this with all of you guys, but that I don't listen to every episode of everybody's podcast.
I don't listen to everyone's podcast either for the same reason.
And it's fine, because I'd fixate on it. It made me it made me think about what I am not doing, and I'm happy with what I'm doing. And I can tell that they're doing good work without listening to every episode.
I don't think you should listen to other Community podcasters, with the exception of when they do interviews. I think it's worth listening to Jenn talk to Megan. I think it's worth listening to Alex's, because they're talking to people you need their insight. Like Shapiro and Schraub, those 2 interviews are directors of the show, and an incredible depth to it. And the guy that he talked to in the first year that did was it Brandon? Chris Brandon?
Yep.
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah. He's talking about how to do the props and how complicated it was and how in depth it was. And the actors are great, but the writers, from my perspective, as somebody who just has to know a lot of stuff. When people say, "Hey, what's the answer to this?" Listening to the directors and listening to the writers and listening to people that weren't on screen, that's the most valuable episodes that exist as far as the fandom goes. I know they only listen to the one. I know they prefer they prefer Danny Pudi, but me too.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. Like, I think you don't listen to my show because of me. Like, I know that. I think people listen to your shows because of you guys. So I'm excited when people listen to my show because they're listening to the folks who made the show itself. But I don't cast aspersions to think that I'm the reason they show up for it. But yeah, I think it's cool when folks are watching or listening to your episodes and your stuff, because they love it. They love you guys. So I think it's just a neat part of the fandom is that there's all these different personalities that people have latched onto, and that's why one of the reasons I have done an episode interviews with adding. Jen's done an episode. Zach, you've done an episode. Steven, I promise you'll get an episode, because people like hearing from y'all, like when there's questions about for the guests. So anyway, that's I don't know where that was coming from. I'll sip my warm beer again. Warm beer.
Matt, I want to go off what you said, because not my only gripes with the season are the overarching season things. I do think episodically I think it's weaker than season 2, where the ideas are so strong, but there's not that special something all the time that really ties it together in a satisfying way, both on every character having a satisfying arc throughout the episode and a natural conclusion to the story coming up. A lot of times, I feel like I can see in the show that they were like, how do we end this thing? How do we end this thing? Oh, I don't know, make someone fart. What, Alex? Tell you why I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right, actually, because Pierce makes for a much better villain, a much better foil to like the study group in season 2 than Chang does. And I love Ken, and I love Chang. I just think that it was so cartoonish. It was done in such a way that for sure. I think I didn't really say what my thoughts were on this yet, and my answer will be brought to us by another swig of beer.
Is it a Yingling? I like
warm
a
beer.
Yingling.
It is. It's a warm lager.
It's a warm beer. Here, I'll distract you with Britabot.
Nice.
So no, but I think my answer to the
decimate.
question is what about season 3? I think it's the third best season of Community after season 2 and 5. And,
Wow. I love season 5.
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know if I'd go that far. That's a hot take, I believe.
I think they both, like, if you're counting like
I
the
love season
endings.
5. Yeah.
The endings of aren't both of them, neither of them have like amazing endings, but when I talk about cooperative polygraphy, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons, G.I. Jeff, basic intergluteal pneumostatics, app development condiments,
Cooperative
geothermal
Polygraphy is
escapism.
one of the best episodes of
Yeah.
the series, for sure.
You have, in my opinion, in the top echelons of the show, more from season 5 than you do in season 3, but that's just because in season 3 you've got Remedial Chaos Theory, obviously the best, Basic Lupine, Pillows and Blankets, regional holiday music.
Later. Tell us your top 5 a little
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
You're
well-
giving
Sorry,
away. You're
I'm
bringing
just-
the
I know,
lead.
I
But
know.
You're right. You're right.
But I'm just saying, there's like a bunch
It's
of
got
season
some
5,
great episodes.
and then a
See,
handful of season.
It's funny to me because you feel the way I feel the way about season 5, the way that Zach feels about season 3. Like, I feel like there's a lot of good scattered throughout there, but I don't feel like the way that the season ends or the arcs
buy
are
it.
satisfying.
I do too.
But I do feel like there's a good, that 3-run jam. But with season 3, I will 100% say that for me, 3 and 2 get really, really close. In the end, I judged it on how many skips I had when I was covering. So season 2 has more skips for me and a lot weaker. I hate the way that it begins. I
Sure.
like the way that it ends. There's a bunch of messy stuff in the middle. And there's some gems. But season 3, for me, the big thing that I will say is, like, the Chang arc is absurd. It got to an absurdity point. Like, it was fine when it began, like Geography of Global Conflict, hilarious,
I think
funniest
it's
thing.
pretty funny, even into
But-
him having the kids by his disposal because of how ridiculous it is.
But it
the
gets
whole
to the-
episode built on it.
But then you get to the point at the end of the season where you
Yeah.
go, you wrote yourself into a corner because now you've made him become someone who is almost going to murder the entire school. You can't really pull back from that so far. And I've talked about that, about how
Yeah.
hard it is when the show goes full steam to pull back. And like you were saying, Matt, like, it tends to do this thing of gradual, episodic character development because it doesn't want to commit to anything. And so when you don't want to commit to anything, you can have self-contained little fun episodes and you don't have to worry about if Shirley grows the entire show. You can just be like, oh, look, she's fun in this one. Ha, ha, laugh. And then you don't have to worry about the fallout or the consequences because you never really plan to have fallout or consequences. So I get, for me, season 3 just has so many stronger points than season 2, but they're so neck and neck that it's, the Chang thing almost sets me over the edge, but
Sure.
like, season 2's duds are just so, I don't even remember most of the episodes. I've watched them maybe once or twice. Like, that's how
Wow.
bad I don't, like, I find them. Like, no thank you, hard pass. So, I don't know. I agree.
Yeah, I still
Yeah.
hold season 2 as the top one, but I'd probably put season 3 as my second favorite. 5 and 1 are fairly close for me. I think 1 has some
1 is so
okay
underrated.
episodes.
It's underrated. It's
But-
so consistent and it's so warm and comforting.
It makes me nostalgic. One makes me nostalgic for like, oh, remember when the show was just about a community
Yeah.
college?
When it actually had stuff
Okay.
that's
They were
related to
Bye,
trying to
everyone.
learn
college experience.
Spanish.
Okay.
They Spanish kept coming
Bye,
back up.
everyone. Like, it was funny, and it fit in with that same genre of what was happening on NBC. And then, like, there are so many good things that come after it, but like, there is some sort of nostalgia that I hold for. Like, I kind of wish we would have stayed in classes, like, and done
Yeah.
more things like season 1.
Yeah.
That's one of
Because-
the things. Obviously, I'm a little bit nervous to jump into season 4, but I'm excited for that aspect of it. That there are more storylines in that season that are about the school, about taking classes, about going to dances, and not. There are some really weird, silly, off the wall ones, but there are a few more grounded episodes. I'm looking forward to that. Let's move into our first lists of things. I want to talk about what each of us think are the bottom 3 episodes of this season. Steven, when we were going through the season, I feel like there were probably 6 or 7 episodes, really, that by the end of it, we were like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I think it was my bottom 2. I was for sure about, but there were definitely a few that could have fought for that number 3 spot for me. And I don't think that there are really too many episodes that I'd call bad this season, but I think they just weren't up to the quality of some of the other ones. Like, this season has a pretty high average score, but it's because it has some really high highs and then a couple that are kind of a little bit lower for me.
They stick out a little sore when there's remedial chaos theory in your season versus a couple others. Who wants to go first? Who wants to tell us the 3 worst episodes of the season?
I'll do it. Hot take time. These are in no particular order, by the way.
Okay.
So, like, I didn't really get a chance to rewatch before but I had just rewatched for my show. So I'm gonna say, in no particular order, my bottom 3 are Contemporary Impressionists, Advanced Gay, and Course Listing Unavailable, which I always get confused with the episode that comes after that.
I do too. Is Course Listing the
Course
clip
Listing
show
is
or the riot?
No, I love the clip
Riot.
show. The riot in Starburn's funeral is the one that I've ranked in my bottom 3. I don't know why they chose to name them so similar because I never remember the difference.
Yeah.
But that one, the Starburn's Memorial, ranks pretty low for me, bottom 3.
I want to single out of those. Let's talk about Advanced Gay for a second. That was an episode that early in the season we were nervous to get to that one because Community. It's always really funny. Its heart is in the right place, but it's not exactly the show to be making jokes about or commentary on gay culture. And then we watched that episode, and it's a Pierce episode of all characters to focus the episode on. But I feel like we were pleasantly surprised by it.
Yeah,
that it was kind of a sweet, nice, funny episode. So what do you not like about it?
I think it's just the matter of, like, I actually saw that when I was live tweeting it when it aired, I enjoyed it more than I do on a rewatch. It's just for me, all other things in season 3 are pretty even and character driven and have like good substance. Like, Advanced Gay is still one of those ones where I'm like, you took a risk and like I don't fully feel like it paid off. Like, I feel like Community just and it doesn't hover this line. It really sometimes just falls completely flat in what it tries to do. And so I think for me it's just one of the weakest of the bunch. Like, I don't know, I just never really connected with it as much. And I think that everything else around that was strong.
Yeah.
And so it kind of stuck out to me. Same thing with like Contemporary Impressionist. It's not bad necessarily. It's just so many other things are better to me. And same thing with like Course Listing. That's kind of how I judge this. I was like, it's not awful. Like, it's not like oh my gosh, I can't even remember. That's how much I dislike this episode. Besides Aerodynamics of Gender, season 1 with the kids, whatever.
Oh,
Art of Discourse.
Art of Discourse.
Yeah.
It's not on that level where
that one's not that
of a
bad.
show.
It's not on the level.
Awful.
It's
not
awful.
that bad.
It's awful.
Zach,
I will
it's
die on
awful.
that hill.
It's not
Goodbye.
great. I'm not going to
It's-
defend it hard. but-
No, when we watched that episode for our show, Zach's like, you know what? This one's kind of funny. And I'm like, no, it's awful.
It's terrible. But like, it's not on the level where I like vehemently have a visceral reaction to certain things with Community, but it's just like, it's weak. Like, it really didn't completely come together, or like it's not as strong. And even though some of it drives plot and character, again, we do the thing where it's like Pierce is like this in this episode, but then in another episode he's awful. So there's no long-term growth, and there's no long-term. Even if Pierce was sweet in this episode, he's back to being terrible by the next one. So, like, really, did this episode do anything? Like, really,
Wait,
did
where
we
is he
do
sweet
anything?
in that episode?
I don't know. If you,
Because he
sorry,
tells
if you're
Dead
saying
Dad
that
to
he's
suck it.
But come on, look at his dad.
I think
he had it
He's
coming.
sweet because we're comparing him to Colonel Crypt Keeper.
Oh, yeah.
His
But,
dad.
like, that's what I'm saying. Is like, in comparison, Pierce isn't the villain in this.
He didn't learn any
episode.
big lessons.
Oh yeah.
But he
Understood.
didn't. But he didn't really. Nothing he learned will stick with him, like Matt was saying. So it's like, while this episode, or any episode that I put on my bottom, or that I don't like about Community, may not be the worst episode of television that's ever written, like, what does it actually do to move the character needle? And a lot of times, in these episodes, there's nothing. It's just like, oh, reset. We're gonna be terrible again tomorrow. Like, so that's kind of where I land with the bottom three. Is like.
Maybe I almost landed higher on that episode because the title and plot line makes it look like it's going to be a train wreck. And then when it wasn't horribly offensive, I was more open to it.
You're just like, you're okay with like mediocrity because you were expecting terrible.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
we have to give
guess.
it points because it features friend of Communies, Shangela, in it. So, got to give it some points for that.
Well, who has a list that's different? Who has some
I
different
do.
episodes? Go ahead.
So I went with my 3 least favorite episodes. And my bottom 2, one of my bottom 2 for sure. I know a lot of people like this one, but I do not.
Wow.
And
I have a feeling.
In my number 3 slot, just edging out Geothermal because the Annie Jeff stuff in that, thumbs down. But
Global
I enjoy
conflict?
the UN.
What,
global
geothermal?
conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Geography of
that's
global
what I meant.
conflict.
Global conflict. I'm going to go first Chang Dynasty in number 3. I think there's some funny parts in that one.
That's fair.
But if I'm looking through every episode and I'm like, what one do I not want to watch?
Which one has Pearson brown face?
That
Yeah.
one.
The one he just said. Yeah.
That one.
So
That's
my
the
number
one.
3. My number 2 least favorite episode of the season is going to be Horror Fiction and 7 Spooky Steps.
Okay,
Oh my
not what I
God.
thought you were going to
You
say.
are definitely not
Hypocrisy.
my
I
child.
remember you don't like that one.
Yeah, I don't like that
episode
episode.
a lot.
I don't find it funny.
Hypocrisy.
I think there's a couple
Oh my
decent
God.
parts, but I think that
Shun
is the
him.
worst Halloween episode.
What's
Shun
wrong?
I've
the
watched that
non-believer.
episode over the last couple years, probably like 8
Ugh.
times.
Yeah, we've
What
talked
if
about
I
it a
told
couple
you that
times.
Megan Gann said that was her favorite Halloween episode?
And she wrote
Yeah.
one.
You should feel bad about yourself.
she
Are you gonna
did.
say? Are you gonna tell Megan Gans that you hate that episode?
Yeah.
and it's her
face.
favorite Halloween
Oh,
episode.
sorry.
Are
Favorite
you, Steven?
episode.
Are
I really
you?
like that episode. I mean, it's got the whole. What holds it all together in the tests and finding out who's crazy, that's a little flimsy, but the stories are so fun, and everyone acting as avatars in everyone else's imagination is super funny. I think Britta's hilarious in that episode. That's a good one. I'm mad at you. Did you say your least favorite?
My least favorite is Contemporary Impressionist. I think that one's
Okay.
just bad.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel validated.
I think that's in the bottom few
Yeah,
episodes
but
of the whole
but
show.
he also thought horror fiction was
Okay,
in the
well,
bottom 3 too.
I'm choosing.
Your validation
I'm
should be like a
choosing
gray
my-
check mark.
It's like
Yeah.
we gotta team up on what we don't like, and I'll like
Yeah.
shun you on what I do like.
It didn't make my top 5, but Horror Fiction was in the running. It was like of the first 8 that I kind of looked at, I could put these at the top. It was
It's
almost in
number
my top
7 on
5.
my list.
Yeah. Do you have the whole season ranked?
I have 110 episodes.
He has all these
Wow.
episodes
I
ranked.
I
It's
was
not
doing
a-
that during season 1, but then I was like, I have to
would
think
also
about all
just-
these episodes. too
I'd
much.
also just like to point out for the listeners at home that Dan Harmon wrote Horror Fiction and 7 Spooky Steps.
Yeah.
So
So are you going to tell Dan Harmon and Megan Gans that you
I
hate
think
them?
we're just bullying
Dan Harmon's
Steven
written
at
some
this
things
point.
that aren't that great. So.
That is true.
That's mainly the vibe
However,
of the
this
podcast,
is the one.
though,
This
so
is
it's
one
okay.
of the very few episodes where he is credited as the
Yeah.
writer, versus like he is the one who is obviously writing rooms are
Sure.
collaborative, but his name is on this script. Which, correct me if I'm wrong,
It's pretty rare.
Matt, is very rare.
It's
Like 3 or
really
4 times.
rare.
Pretty
He's,
rare.
Except for the
he's only
finale?
there like 4 times.
It's like I might even
Pilot.
know. It's the pilot. I
Pilot?
think he co-wrote
pilot, emotional
Uncontrollable Christmas.
consequences.
I think he co-wrote
Yeah.
Uncontrollable
Pilot.
Christmas
Yeah, he's
Oh, yeah,
on
he
like
did.
4.
with Dino.
I think he's on like 4 or 5 total.
Repilot.
And
And,
he-
yeah, I think there's 4 or
This
5.
is
Yeah.
just me bullying Steven into liking the episode that I love.
I realize I've been muting myself when eating crackers, but I'm not muting myself in the recording. So
No, Zach will
I'm not
fix
going to
it.
mute myself anymore.
Yeah, that's
eating
how I
crackers.
do things
I'll fix it.
too.
I try to make
Sip
as
it
many
too.
small sounds as
Sip it
possible because I know they'll bother Zach and he'll fix them.
I'll snip out your cracker sounds and make it sound like we're all eating crackers. So
Just take like the Vlasic picture,
like everybody
pickle
going-
sound for commercials.
I always do that. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Everyone just do this for a second.
Oh, ASMR now?
Okay, Matt or Alex, one of you guys, give us your
Ooh.
bottoms.
Do you want to go, Alex?
Sure, I'll
Give
go.
us your bottoms.
Give us your bottoms.
All right, let me show you my bottom. All right.
There's something wrong with all of you,
Yep.
except for
Just give
me
us
and
your bottom,
Jen and
man.
Alex.
so there's something wrong with specifically the two of us.
Yeah.
Just for clarity.
All right. So I
hear
agree
it.
with Advanced Gay being not very fun. No, it's fun. It's fine. It's fine. It's just not. I don't rank it very high.
I don't think
compared to
anybody's
others.
going to be too mad at you for saying
Yeah.
that.
All right. Drum roll. Documentary filmmaking redux.
Wow!
Oh
God.
Wow.
Okay, so
Definitely
back it
not
up.
my
Let's hear why.
sacrilege.
Child or brother.
Yeah, I just.
So weird. Alex just totally dropped
I
off
thought
the
I was
ball,
gonna have
guys.
the most hated bottom three pick. But
I'm
that's
usually
pretty
the
rough.
one who has hot takes.
I
y'all.
can't believe Zach just dropped him off this podcast.
Yeah.
And Alex, sorry, his
Alex,
connection just broke.
Alex has been replaced by.
Anyone. Anything.
But tell us why.
Avatar.
Why don't you like that one? That's such a classic. Or are
I
you just
think-
trying to raise a fuss?
No, I
Trying to ruffle
honestly,
Zach's feathers.
I'm looking
No,
at
if
my
you
list.
looked at his 110, it's not in the top.
It's
Huh.
99.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
It's I don't know. I just never really liked the documentary ones. I thought they were like, The Office is doing that thing, and
Okay.
you know, like I feel like I like the first one. Wait, with the first one from season 2,
Yeah.
when
yeah,
you know
hospital.
It's
when
Pierce.
Pierce
the
in the
Pierce
hospital.
reveal, like the hospital, I thought that was good. But when you start literally reduxing it and doing it again, I don't know. I never bought really like the whole Dean thing. I don't have to explain myself. Screw you guys.
I'm not going to argue too much.
When you were asked to explain yourself.
I'm not going to argue too much because I'm going to have some things to say about that episode in a later segment of
All
this
right.
podcast when
So
we're
let me get to
talking
my
about some
third.
different episodes. Yeah, let's hear it.
Origins of vampire mythology.
Okay.
Okay,
all right,
that's fine.
It's
fair.
like it's just
It's not the best.
That one
all three
almost
of those are
that
just
would have
okay.
probably been my four. My fourth
Yeah, I mean,
worst.
urban matrimony sandwiches, global conflict, impressionist, course of listing unavailable. Like those are all like I put them in the really just they're
stinkers.
like the bottom half of season 3, which is why season 5 is a better season because there are more positives of season 5 than there are negatives. And in season 3 has like a lot of just like these are good.
Okay, I'll do mine. My number 3 worst, I went with the first Chang Dynasty. It's not as bad as I remembered it being,
Yeah.
but it's pretty off the walls, and the way that it comes together doesn't justify all the stuff that they tore apart getting there, I don't think. My number 2 is Contemporary Impressionist. It's one of my least favorite episodes of the series. Basing a whole episode on pop culture and the cast doing impressions of people is not good. It's one of my least favorite shades of Jeff in that episode. I want to like Jeff, and so often the show does things that make me not like him. And yeah, I just don't think that one's very funny. But for whatever reason, I put Urban Matrimony and the Sandwich Arts as my least favorite of the season.
Fair.
Yeah, I just, other than Troy and Abed being normal, that's just
That
a
one line
nothing
specifically
episode.
is really bad.
What else happens in that one?
Shirley and Andre get
line of
remarried.
wives and mothers.
Many
yeah.
do.
Yeah, that's a good line.
I cordially invite you to stop. This
Webster's
Train wreck
Dictionary
thing.
defines.
It's like Shirley gets remarried, and she and Pierce start looking at starting their business together. And I remember being really frustrated with that episode because all of the conflict could have been resolved so much more
Yeah.
easily. And then it kind of ended with Andre yelling at Shirley for some reason and her being the bad person in the situation. I don't know. That one rubbed me the wrong way.
I think the only thing I will say in defense of that, it's not, well, first of all, it holds a special place in my heart because we had a 3-month hiatus between Regional Holiday and that one. So that was the first episode back. And I was like, oh, so excited, first episode back. It has
Wasn't
a
it
lot
kind of a letdown, though? Were you a little bit like,
I don't remember being let down.
Yeah?
I remember being like, okay, this is good. Because also for me, I mean, I know that there's like some weirdness with Shirley and Andre, and I really don't love how the show does certain things, but like Shirley got an episode and Pierce got an episode, and Pierce wasn't being a terrible person, he was just being aloof, and Shirley had a desire to have a business and she didn't back down on that. And like the show does Shirley so dirty in so many situations that for her to actually have an episode where she was focusing on running a business and Pierce was being supportive, even though he was being like, oh, I don't know how to do anything. That's the best flavor of Pierce, and that combo with Shirley was the best combo of them. And also, it had that gag of Yvette laughing, and then the card of being like fully 5 minutes later.
See,
which I still find
now I'm
hilarious.
thinking more about why I didn't like that episode. I remember jokes like that one specifically.
Yeah, you did not like that one.
Yeah, I didn't like that just because it felt out of character for the show to me. It felt like the editing wasn't as like quick and snappy.
And wasn't that
I'm not gonna
episode
talk about
directed by
specific
someone
jokes,
who
but
didn't he like direct like
he
two
only directed like
episodes?
one or two episodes. I
Right,
forget
back to
who it
back.
was. I remember.
I
that
don't
feeling
remember
kind of
the
off.
directors
I don't
of them,
either.
but no, the complaint in the fandom at the time was, oh, you get a break for after regional holiday musical, and then you spend way too much time in the edit room. So you've added, in particular in that episode, they've got the images of in Jeff's heart, which three of them are Annie, and you have that those two stills for her laughing or her being staring. And they're like, oh, you over-edited. And he's like, no, that was originally in there. But, with the break, there's an assumption that we're just constantly fiddling with it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that was part of the fandom's complaint when it happened.
So Wikipedia also will tell me that this one was originally supposed to air later, but they wanted something more accessible coming out of hiatus.
I remember that,
so
too.
that is the one thing that it
Contemporary
does.
Impressionist was going to be the first one
Which
back.
would have been way
Ooh.
worse.
That would have
And
been
they
way
swapped
worse.
it.
Even
But,
though I
like,
put it
Yeah.
above. Just barely.
yeah, I think that like out of things to come back from a hiatus, was it the strongest thing ever? No, but also were we like, this is great, I get to have an episode where all of these characters are doing shenanigans and having fun. Yeah, like that was, so it's, I can see why you would rank it pretty low, because it's not the best or funniest always, but I don't know.
Yeah, it ended up being my like
enjoyed
number
it.
5 towards the bottom.
Matt, I'm excited for this because you often aren't willing to do stuff as far as ranking specific episodes. Am I wrong? You don't like to single stuff out like that.
I don't like to do it in general
I've made
because
you.
I don't like to crap on people's happiness, because there are people that like the puppet episode above
Over
every
here,
other
we love to
episode.
do that. We love to crap
That's-
all over people's
I'm
happiness.
happy for you.
Why haven't I been on
also,
the show before?
I know.
Seems like
all
my
we do
vibe.
is talk poorly
not
about
these
it.
two,
It's really
thank
great.
God. But no, there are people that love episodes, and I don't like, piling on. But I'll participate. No, the three at the bottom. I agree with almost everybody here. Contemporary Impressionist is the one that we most look at.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue to you though that the reason we don't like this episode is because it's meant to drive a narrative for us. It's meant to drive part of that Abed is not easy to get along with.
Mm-hmm.
He is work because he's difficult, and he's obstinate. And so a lot of the stuff we don't like is where Dan was kind of required to tell the long story that he did not attempt to try at any level in season 2. So in season 3, this darker tone, we don't like it. And we typically don't like it when it's related to Abed because we just love Abed. So it's just by default, we don't want him
That's a
to be
good
an
point.
asshole. But he's a complete asshole in this episode because he's oblivious to everybody else, even though they're busting their hump or literally Ryan Seacrest hulking their way through this party. So yeah, and it starts Chang Dynasty's the little soldiers and the idea of Phoebe as a replacement. So all this stuff is there meant to be the DNA for the rest of the season because it's the halfway mark. They have to tell a narrative. That was a big push from NBC and Sony was that they have something like this in there. So the episodes, for the most part, I think the episodes we dislike the most are the ones that are pushing those narratives because the ones that don't do that, in general, we like them pretty well. First Chang Dynasty, it's the same problem. It's wrapping up the big narrative so they can have a final episode.
We're all so ready for it to be over with before it even
yeah.
starts.
It's
Let's
gotta-
get it done.
Also, lest we forget, this was one of 3 episodes that aired on the same night?
Must have
night.
been
Yeah,
exhausting.
Back
and it's
to back,
the lesser of
it
the
was
3.
exhausting.
It was the lesser of the 3 because digital
Yes.
estate planning was a lot of
So
fun.
good.
First Chang Dynasty just wasn't the finale. So I mean, It wasn't.
That's weird because Chang Dynasty
touch
is
it.
kind of like a finale, and then right after it, the real finale.
It's basically like what they did in season 1, where if you look at the last 3 episodes of season 1, they're 3 finales. They're 3 different finales. Same thing with this one, where they were literally burning off the 3 final episodes. So it was like we were watching 3 finales. We were watching them all the same night. The NBC's like, burn them, like put them all
Go.
on the same night, and let's be done. So yeah, it's a weak, quote unquote, finale.
And it's a weaker to 3, and it ties off the big storyline for the whole of the season, which is Chang being crazy and dangerous. So that's really there for that purpose. It does have some great gags. Because I didn't see it until like 2 years ago.
You had time to make a tiny working water fountain, and I'm a pine cone.
no.
That's also really fun.
Yeah, there's a good line in there, but they've got that Roddenberry bit that took us forever to notice. They got Troy's face coming through the butthole of the flag.
It's got Pearson Brown face though, Matt.
That's an
the
obviously
unforgivable
unlikable part of it. And that's
Unforgivable.
The Dean at the Rave,
It's a it's a conversation. Yeah, the rave is pretty funny. It does have
The rave
its
bit's funny,
moments, but I don't know. The Pierce is just a conversation ender a little bit.
completely different one. Yeah, and my third would be competitive ecology. That would be my bottom.
Wow,
The
I
Todd
really like that
problem?
episode.
I love
The
that
Todd
episode.
episode.
The
I'm not
Todd
saying I don't
problem.
love it. I love the
know.
episode, but the problem is
But it's true. That one I had thought about, and then
they
I
are
was like, no,
so
no.
but
Really?
it's
They're
got
terrible. They're
they're
terrible
terrible
people.
human
so they're
beings.
But Todd's
unlikable.
so good.
That's
But
what
the
I like about
one-liners-
that
They're so
episode, though,
bad to him.
because the study group are
one-liners
kind of
are
always like that.
beautiful.
Oh, they are.
And that
Just
episode
bang.
proves that the show knows that they're bad people, and that when they're on their own, they're this sweet, happy family. But to everyone looking from the outside,
They're
who are
toxic
these
to the
people
rest
that are
of this
making
place.
Their love
everything
is
about them,
toxic and weird.
they're awful to each other? I really like
But
that.
again,
episode.
that to go back to our
Yeah.
earlier point, that episode ends with them learning nothing at all.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Nothing at
cool.
all. Yeah, it's
Moral
Todd.
of the
It's-
story.
It's
Poor Todd.
weird baby. It's oddly shaped head. That's the real problem. It's not us. That's them being oblivious because they have to tell this story, this narrative of them being the Greendale Seven. They ultimately not called the Greendale Seven until Chang Dynasty. That's what's there. So yeah, no, I don't disagree with you about the narrative parts of season 3. It just has an incredible amount of stuff in it, and you cannot redo season 2. You can't have Pierce come back and be the asshole who's the biggest problem in the group. That doesn't work. They also had in season 3, and I think Andy Bobrow said it on Alex's podcast, when they got to season 3, they could not just do an homage. It had to be layers of an homage. So they had to do multiple references in one, not just one
And that's something
reference.
that I think bogs the season down just a little bit, because they just needed to like chill out a little bit sometimes, because there's so much good there, but they've got to have like a concrete reason why every little thing is happening. That sometimes I think especially the endings of episodes feel really rushed
Well,
together.
and you also have to remember, of course, during this time, and we talked about this recently when we were recording, is like they were writing these and getting feedback in real time. Like, not real time, but like they were able to watch the feedback while it was airing. So you have the ability to like reconstruct as things go along. And that isn't always the case with Community moving forward.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those things where they're like, oh, we can adjust this. We can make an homage, like, to a wink and a nod to our fans or whatever. And so I think that plays a little bit into, like, not fan servicey territory, but, like, this, in season 3, what I truly believe is, like, this show was the fandoms in season 3. Because this was
I agree
the
with
season
you
it
there.
got pulled off the air. So everyone was, like, rabidly
Freaked
trying
out.
to protect it. And that was like kind of the vibe of the fandom at the time. So there are these big swings because they knew that this might be the last time they could big swing, so might as well go big or go
So
home.
go for it.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it doesn't
go
always
for it.
pay off. To your point, it does not always pay off. But I think this season they were like, if this is our last season, we're going to go out with a bang. And yeah.
That's a great way to segue into what does work about the season. I like starting off with the negative so we can focus a little bit more on the positive, because there is a lot of positive in season 3. There's one of the best episodes of sitcom television of all time, and quite a few of the best episodes of Community, so ones that would probably rank amongst the best sitcom episodes of all time. Who wants to kick off with that? Who wants to do their top 5?
I'll since I did the last one, I'll start.
Go for
that
it.
way you can discuss the rest of them. My top 5: Remedial Chaos Theory, and it'd be weird if it's not on everybody's 5.
Is this in any particular
this is
order?
Not. No,
Okay.
it is not in any particular order. Pillows and Blankets. That was pitch perfect. What they were pulling off there, where they focused on one homage and went right through it. I thought it was great.
Not one of my favorites.
Probably not going to be on everybody's list.
It's good.
Virtual system
It's not a
analysis.
bottom.
Yeah,
It's a middle
Yeah, virtual.
for me.
No, I'm talking about the next one. Virtual system analysis is one of my favorite episodes because I remember turning to my wife and saying, "These people can do anything." Because this is the craziest thing I've ever seen, and they stuck the landing. And of course, it does have the reference you were talking about, fan service, where she calls, Allison, Annie calls them blowgons, and Abed corrects it and says, no, it's blorgons with an R. Blowgons means thank you. That was a reference to the fans going and correcting them. An error in the Wikipedia page. So that's just ridiculous.
Such a deep cut fan service line.
Yeah.
So deep cut.
Basic Lupin, because again, that was pitch perfect, and the one that's not going to be on anybody else's list, Foosball and Nocturnal Vigilantism.
That's a good
I
episode.
do like that
I
episode.
absolutely
that one has
love
a
that
whole
episode.
anime fight scene, Matt.
As
Shirley
the
gets
anime
a
with
story
the
again.
Well, yeah,
cats
you
in
talk
it.
about giving Urban Matrimony the benefit of the doubt. I feel like the foosball episode does a Shirley story in a much better way. It deepens what we know about several of the characters, and it kind of, I don't know, it could have been a stretch to make Shirley and Jeff have this interaction together when they were younger, but instead, I think it works really well, and it makes a lot of sense as to why Shirley portrays herself now the way that she does based on kind of her upbringing and the type of person that she used to be, both with her alcoholism as an adult and being kind of a bully as a kid. I think that's a really great episode for Shirley.
Well, and I
Nick
think
Kroll's
that
kind of
Shirley
funny
and
in it.
Jeff is one of my favorite pairings in the whole show. It works
Absolutely.
really, really well for
Nearly
me every
enough.
time.
and didn't happen remotely
happen
nearly
remotely
enough.
enough.
No,
Yeah.
and it has
Ugh.
Abed back as Batman with the grappling hook he got for Christmas from Troy.
Aw,
There's
don't make grappling hook.
Annie causing it to get worse instead of
Annie
calming
doing a
it
Hilarious.
Christian
down.
Bale impression.
Yeah,
The scene was a
That
challenge
wasn't
for
a
everyone
viable
involved.
option.
yeah. And they're humming Daybreak when he uses the key to lock the
blanket
blankets
fort.
for his bedroom. I love the episode
really
because
funny.
it doesn't have everybody in it. It doesn't have everybody doing something, but the A story and the B story together are doing something completely different, and they're all by themselves perfectly wonderful. Well done, for me.
Who's next?
Zach,
Let's
why
go
don't you go
backwards.
next?
Oh, okay. I was going to
Oh
go
wait,
backwards.
is that not backwards?
I don't know who went.
We can do
That
whatever.
was Zach. I think it was
Yeah, I
you.
think Zach
And
is
then
next.
Zach,
Alex, and
then me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Okay.
do it. My top 5. This isn't a particular order. My number 5, digital exploration of interior design. I think that's a great episode. I like it better than Pillows and Blankets. Not Pillows and Blankets is pitch perfect, but it kind of bores me a little bit because it's doing the job that it's setting out to do, what it's based on, but it's not my favorite episode to watch. I love watching the setup of that plot line in the previous episode. It's one of the best Brita episodes, and it does that season 3 thing of having a really cartoony plot, but for whatever reason in this episode I just really go with it, and I love Subway being a person and
really
the
funny.
the hidden love affair that he and Britta have. I love that episode. Number 4, virtual systems analysis. I also really love that episode. That episode of Community walked, so the episode of The Good Place where Janet plays everybody could run. Number 3,
nice line.
digital estate planning. I love digital estate planning. I think it's so fun. All of the nods to 8-bit games are pitch perfect. From watching it this time, the way that all the characters move differently, the way that Troy is the type of player that no matter what they're doing on screen, he's jumping all over the place, like playing with the game. That's such a good episode. My number 2 is documentary filmmaking Redux. I absolutely love that episode. One of the things that I did mention
Look at
earlier,
Zach.
season 3 is where the dean really comes to the foreground of the show and is just as important of a character as anyone else, and it's his like tour de force in that episode. He's so good as he descends into madness. Jeff as the dean is also pitch perfect.
so
That episode's
funny.
so good. I was so surprised you called that one out negatively. And my number 1, it's Remedial Chaos Theory. You have to. You kind of literally have to.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Hey Zach, I don't have any issues
Okay.
with your top 5.
Thank you. I feel like there's a but.
No, I
No,
feel like
okay, so
normally
where's
you
the-
have one and I'm like,
Here's
Yeah.
like the funny thing that you might notice then after season 3. I think between seasons 1 and 3, most people would rank their top episodes similarly. You might not have all of them, but you would probably say like, this is like my top episode. Like this is one of my top episodes. My theory is that season 4 and beyond, you have such a polarizing, I love this episode, I hate this episode.
It'll be
that
interesting
doesn't
to see.
always happen in season 1 through
Yeah.
3, but
Yeah.
my theory, you should test it, but that's my
I think
theory.
you're right. I think season 3 is a little bit more.
It's a little bit more.
These
There's
are
a lot
good,
of
these are
good
bad.
episodes where season 2 has so many. We like to talk about Mount Rushmore of Community. Season
Yeah.
2 has so many of like the 4 or 5 episodes that you have to put into the
Everybody,
conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, who's next? Is it Jen?
It's Alex.
Alex.
It's Alex.
All right. Let's see. I have digital estate planning as number 5.
Nice.
Good choice.
I think it's going 16-bit, 8-bit,
8-bit.
8-bit.
Oh, 16-bit. There's a lot of colors. It might be 16-bit. If we want to get technical with it, it
Technically,
might be
it's,
I
it's an
16.
8-bit joke, but it's a 16-bit environment. So, yes, go, please.
Really great. Number 4, and I will be really curious if this is on anyone else's list. Regional holiday music is amazing.
It's really
I was
good.
surprised it
close.
wasn't on Zach's.
It was close. It was probably number 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. Pillows and Blankets, I think, is pitch perfect, as Matt said. Love what Andy did with that episode. And Basic Lupine Urology, of course, pretty amazing. And then Introduction to Finality. I'm kidding.
It's gonna be like, wow, plot twist.
Well, look at you.
Obviously, Remedial Chaos Theory. So.
Yeah, solid list. I think
That is a good
regional
list.
holiday music is really funny, and especially like at the time it came out. Nicely done. Well
Agree.
done.
It might not be objectively the best Community Christmas episode, but I think it's my favorite because it's so fun and so funny, and it is the perfect episode of a TV show to watch around Christmas time.
Happy birthday, Jesus. Cut the cake. Cut the cake. That's all I have to say.
The kids
One of-
singing about
one
the
of
public
Shirley's
schools
finest
holding
moments.
back
They don't wanna tell
information. They're not going to tell you.
Yep.
Okay, good
my
list.
next.
One of
Yeah.
Bet's
Okay.
best moments on that show.
For my number 5, I did a stinky and decided to do a tie for my number 5 because both of these
cheated.
episodes I think are really, really good, and I didn't want to leave either of them out. But
It's our
Basic
show. We make
Lupine
the rules.
Urology and documentary filmmaking Redo. I had to throw in there. I think both those are great. Really enjoy them. Number 4, regional holiday music.
Yeah.
Really? So you did put it in?
I did, even though it's not my
Okay.
favorite Christmas episode. It's the one that I like to watch the most, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
My number 3, digital estate planning. I thought that was like they did everything right for me in that episode. I didn't have very many qualms about it at all. If I'm thinking, because we just talked about it pretty recently, but
Yeah.
I think they did it so well. The game that they built in itself is like really great, and I want to play it. I know that there's
You
a
can
place
play
you
it.
can, so I
Yeah.
need to
You
go
can-
do
you can-
that.
That's what's
I don't know
amazing.
if
Yeah.
I need to play Gay
Oh,
Island.
I
or if
want to play it.
I need
Yeah,
never got that
to
far.
play.
I do
tried
have
Carrie
some qualms
every
about
day.
that episode.
Yeah.
My qualms are as follows.
Number 2 for me, pillows and blankets. Something I
Wow.
meant to say earlier is something that I think worked for me more than it worked for Zach, at least in season 3. I think they had a lot of moments towards the end of episodes that were pretty small, most of them involving Troy, usually with Abed, a couple times with Britta, that were a little bit emotional, that kind of tugged at me. And pillows and blankets for me, I think they just really... I love to see them back being friends again. I love Troy and Abed. I think that there are a few moments where I laughed as like painfully hard as when Pierce, covered in the pillows, comes out to fight the kids. I like want to cry laughing so hard right now, and I'm holding it in because that
What does
image
he say?
is
He
burned
says
in my
like,
skull.
"I'm gonna kill you.
I'm
you
gonna
little
kill you."
shit,"
Yeah,
to a bunch
little
of kids.
bastards.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's cursing at children.
and I think that's incredible.
Tracks.
But number 1, got to be Remedial Chaos Theory. I
Yeah.
think it's one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen, and it's one that like I always knew, like was like, oh, this is great, but then actually getting to take like a thoughtful, if that's what you want to call it, we do, look at the episode. It's just truly incredible, and it's just like it's just such a special however many minutes of television, and it
is special.
It's very important.
Unlike anything else that it's ever been made and that probably ever will be. Yeah. All right, Jen, does that leave you?
It does leave me. All right. Number 5, documentary filmmaking redux. There will be nothing funnier to me in the world than Donald Glover screaming, Stop saying I'm different. And knowing that was like just a thing that came out of Donald Glover. And but also, after talking to Megan about this episode, the emotional heart that you have with the Dean and the fact that the Dean gets some emotional growth, that is really important. Like you were saying earlier, like the Dean becomes a bigger player, and so to have some sort of moment of being grounded in the midst of absurdity, I think was really helpful. Number 4, horror fiction and 7 spooky steps. My personal favorite Halloween episode.
Ooh, Steven, you suck.
I think that everyone's stories are hilarious, and I just love the little bits and pieces they put in. That in Shirley's version of her story, Britta says, "Anywho," just like Shirley would. Like that's just the little touches that just make the episode. Number 3 is regional holiday music because I was watching Glee and its train wreck at the time.
Glee. Yeah. Like,
and
I hate Glee, but I love Glee.
I hate
I've
Glee,
never
but I love
seen
Community
Glee.
making fun of Glee. And if you were watching Glee at the time, those hidden layers of references, the Kings of Leon joke, because Kings of Leon wouldn't let their music be on Glee. Taryn
piano guy.
Killam, Killam, the gem,
Fantastic.
the light of a human being that he is just pitch perfect as Mr. Rad. All of the Glee nods, it's the songs, everything is great. No notes. Number 2 is basic lupine neurology, a pitch perfect. Oh, if someone was like, how do you do a TV homage episode? I would point them to this because this is how you do an homage and a nod to Law and Order while also still making it so impactful. Every character is exactly who they are, even though Britta and Shirley aren't utilized a whole lot. They are just perfect. With one click, can make an Old West color. Like
that's a really good joke.
It's just a good joke. I think that it's just everything was perfect in that episode. And then number 1 is. What else would it be besides Remedial Chaos Theory? The only episode of television from Community that ever was submitted for a major award should have won the award.
Should have won.
Brilliant writing. I mean, honestly, like it's just so iconic and so good, and can still make me laugh. I've watched. I don't know how many times I've watched that episode.
Matt, do you know off the top of your head what won the Emmy that year?
It was Louis' season opener for that third season.
It hurts even more now. It feels even more insulting.
But I think Remedial Chaos Theory is going to end up in film school textbooks. I think people are going to be tearing that episode apart, both the way that it's filmed and the way that it's written. I think people are going to be looking at that episode for forever.
It is.
Maybe Chris McKenna can put that on his mantle. The book.
Who's talking about Louis anymore?
Go sneak over. If they are, it's in a tabloid. It's good Lord. It's in the top 60 of IMDb's ever television shows.
Wow.
Period. And a lot of ahead of it is anime stuff where there's a lot of kids just voting 10 for every episode of what they like. Is that Steven?
It's me.
You're
Steven's
definitely
like,
not
kids.
the preferred child here.
I'll take it.
If you go and look
For
at the
once,
list,
you've
go and
taken
look at
my
the
spot,
list.
Zach.
The only 2 episodes that are in the top, I think it's the top 80, is Modern Warfare and Remedial Chaos Theory.
But I just think that even
That's a
though
shame.
we're talking about the fact that the episode doesn't there's growth in the episode too. Like it drives the plot. Annie moves in with Abed and Troy. It furthers what I'll talk about later of Troy being this leader. Troy, when he leaves to go get the pizza, utter chaos ensues. When Jeff goes to leave, he thinks that something bad is going to happen, and nothing bad happens. Like, it's just in those little moments of character growth, in addition to it being hilarious, it's so chock full of, this is who these characters are in 22 minutes.
And at the same time, transcending what the structure of an episode of television could even be, while having all those familiar beats and being hilarious and being a great story. Yeah, what a great episode.
It is the model and Steven doesn't know this yet, it is the model for emotional consequences of broadcast television.
Yeah, Steven's never seen the series finale of the program, for anyone who doesn't know that. And we've just, now that we're doing the podcast, we've got to save it. It'll be special.
Now you gotta have to save
My editor
it.
hasn't either. Multiple
They all
guests
die.
haven't either.
Steven's never seen an episode of the show. He just likes
We actually
to
have a
be around
segment
for it.
because I don't
Pretending.
actually watch the show. We have a whole segment for those who don't know where I have 20 seconds to explain what happens in the episode to prove if I watched it or not. Which some episodes it's
doesn't
really
usually go
hard
well.
to
It doesn't
get
usually go
everything
well.
that happens.
Okay, so to talk about something else we do, move into the last thing that we're going to do. Every episode, at the end of it, Steven and I award an MVP to whoever we think was the most important character in that episode, whether it's
Me.
for a story
Oh,
reason.
you meant from the show.
We'll
this
be giving
five,
away the
it's
MVP
Alex, right?
of these 5 a little
Awkward.
bit later. That's happening.
Hi. Oh my gosh, Zach and Steven, if I haven't told you already, you are just the greatest.
Yeah, you had your time.
Thank you
had your
so
chance. None of this counts towards it. I've already made my decision. So before we're going to talk about what our heart is, but I also had to crunch the numbers and see if I put together all of the ones that me and Steven gave out throughout the season, who got the most. And okay,
We have our
so
individual stats too.
yeah, so I have individually both of our top 3. My top 3, they were all tied: Britta, Troy,
Wow.
and Abed. I gave each of
Wow.
them 3, but mine was really it was
Spread
really
out.
spread. Not a lot of characters had multiple, but a lot of characters I gave them out. Steven, yours was not the same. Okay,
Be
so
surprised.
technically
Do
I
I
have to
have enough
give
for a
4
top
for
3?
you because your second place is a 4-way tie between Dean, Shirley, Britta, and Jeff. You gave them each 2. Your winner, you gave 8 episodes to Troy. So then overall, that
Stand by
totally
it.
puts the thumb on the scale, making Troy, who we gave the most to over the season, with 11. And then second place, Britta with 5. And then Dean, Abed, and Chang with 4.
I stand
don't know,
by
I think
that.
stuff like that's interesting.
Oh,
But
all right.
I
going
stand
off
by
of
those
that,
numbers.
let's talk about who our heart
Lump of
says,
coal
because
for
that's
Steven
not my
this
answer.
Christmas.
I think we know who Stevens is. And I think I know who
I'm
Jen's
with
is.
Steven. I'm
Yeah.
with Steven.
Yeah.
My notes say Troy, the Wonder Boy.
Troy,
But honestly,
he grew.
he grew. He was the one who had the most grounded emotional arc. He learned in season 2. You get this. If I may step on a soapbox for a moment.
Do it.
In season 2, you have this setup that they do so brilliantly of like Jeff versus Troy, but not in a like competitive way, like more in a way of like you present Troy as the person that Jeff wishes he could be, totally unjaded, not cynical, the heart of a hero, like, and you have those moments where you see Troy stepping up, like in mixology certification. That's a perfect example of how they were setting up Troy to be a leader. And then in the season 2 finale, you also get that. In season 3, it's all about Troy having to make hard decisions and to make mistakes, but to ultimately be the person to make sacrifices for the people that he loves, even if they wouldn't necessarily do it in return. Because I don't know, would Jeff choose to go off to the air conditioning repair school if it was the only way to save everyone else? Everyone else is telling him not to do it. Like, they're like, Britta's like, don't do it, Troy. And Troy is the one who, at the very end, has the opportunity to do something that we would expect most of the characters on Community to do, which is like take revenge and like be the hero and the champion, and he helps someone instead. And that is who Troy Barnes is at his core. He is someone who loves his friends, who has a good heart, who like maybe aloof sometimes, but his heart has always genuinely been in a good place, even when in this season he is having to tell Abed, this is not okay. That is not okay what you did. And of course, Troy and Abed fight the way that friends fight, where it's like you can pick out everyone's vulnerabilities. You can pick out the person, if you love the person that you're fighting with, if you know the person you're fighting with, you know exactly how to hurt them. And that's what Troy and Abed do to each other. But Troy, I think, like, you can see from start to finish, especially if you track it from season 2 to season 3. Season 3 for me is Troy, because it is like Troy is not only like a man in the eyes of the study group now, he is also a leader and someone who is willing to do whatever it takes to put the good of other people in front of what he wants to do or what he's expected to do. And anyway, I love Troy Barnes with my whole heart. Troy's my MVP.
Well, we just kind of talked about recently. I think over the entire series, Troy, from beginning to end, has the most cohesive character arc. We gave him our overall MVP last season, so it feels like a cop-out to do it again this season. But, I mean, it's fair.
Was he going to be MVP in season 6, too?
From that one episode where we see Troy's hand wave for 2 seconds?
Yes.
I think my heart, though, season 3 MVP is kind of the Dean, just because I think season 3 is it goes past the study group a little bit more than it has before to show the world of Greendale, the people who inhabit the halls, and the Dean is just who embodies that more than anyone else, and he gets so many funny, memorable moments all throughout the season, and the Dean's my favorite character, but it's hard to argue Troy. What about Matt, Alex? Do you say Troy, or do you go a different direction?
Alex, did you want to?
Yeah, this totally fits my theory that each season is a character, and that this season is obviously Britta. It's obviously Troy. Season. It's Troy. This is his season to be the hero of kind of centerpiece and hero of the stories. Even though everyone gets a little bit in the magic, but. Like Jeff is the first season hero, Abed is the second season hero, Troy is the third season hero. So I think I could go on if you want to know the other ones.
Yeah, who's
the hero season 4?
I think Britta's the hero season 4.
Okay.
Yep. And then I think they cop out and go back to Jeff with the repilot as Jeff being the season 5 hero, and then Dean is season 6 hero.
Sure.
So, and I think that obviously I'm missing characters because
because they didn't want to make them the heroes. You can say that, Alex.
I mean,
they didn't spend enough time on them to make them the heroes.
Frankie Dart could totally be the hero.
Never was
of
intended.
No, but I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's about it for season 3, and moving.
Matt doesn't get to talk.
Well, Matt.
Wow.
Yeah,
hey,
that does it.
Steven's moved up
that
in the ranking here.
Everyone, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Drive home safe.
It's Abed.
Matt, go ahead.
Abed. No, for me, it's Abed. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, when you talk about MVP, you're talking about the person I think that is the most valuable person who is on the show, and there is nobody more important than Abed because he has to be the horrible version of Abed. We have to actually spend more time around him and realize that he's problematic like everybody else on the show. It's not calling out him for his disability. He's a human being. He's not easy to get along with at all times. And so he has an arc, but it's less obvious because he's a character with limited emotional communication. So for me, like when they go to virtual system analysis where they had that moment where he's telling her the truth. He's like, I always end up in a locker. I always end up alone. I always end up trapped. I'm never going to invent dance pants in 2019. Whatever the list of things. And there were pants made for Donald Glover in 2019 at some fair thing. So, yeah, it's ridiculous that it happened. They picked the future. But no, Abed ultimately, for me, is the character that matters the most because it's the darkest timeline and the different timelines only exist in his head.
For now.
So remedial chaos theory is only... No, I don't buy that. that's
Stay tuned, man. I have a whole conversation about
that. I agree with you.
Jeff's interpretation of what he thinks what he was talking about, but it only actually exists in full detail accurately in Abed's head. So that episode only exists with him. He has to be horrible. He has to be the person who's a problem and he does look like a brown Jamie Lee Curtis in that dress. Even when he was shaving in the behind-the-scene photos, he's got a little electric shaver getting his 5 o'clock shadow off so he can, look appropriate for the character.
Jamie Lee Curtis, friend of the show. Our show.
No, I think ultimately Abed's the most valuable character for season 3. I mean, I also think he's the most valuable player for season 2 to a large regard, and he's not remotely relevant in 4 and not that much in 5. But I do agree. Troy has an arc. They ultimately do have an arc for Troy, and it's good. Donald Glover's an incredible actor. He's an incredible whatever he's doing. Apparently, I mean that's great. But ultimately for me, it's Abed. If you're talking about the actor that's most important to season 3, it's Alison Brie. I think ultimately she sells everything because she gets more weight she has to carry. She's now the main attraction lead. So over Gillian's character, because it's basically abandoned Gillian in that category. And she has to do a lot more. There's an episode that Gillian doesn't have a line in season 3.
Wow.
It's pills and blankets. She not say
sure.
one word. So
She
Allison
takes a
and Joel are the only
there's a picture of
two.
her.
Yeah. So Allison and Joel are the only two that have words they speak in every episode of Community. Gillian is the only one who also appears in all episodes. And then it's Danny. Danny's right after that list. And then you get down to Chevy's obviously the lowest of the 7.
In a lot of ways.
Oh, you love Community a lot.
I did not put an asterisk by that. I have to read a lot of Reddit at this point to keep up with everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff that people have figured out. But no, for me, ultimately, I think Allison has to carry more weight in season 3. And so I think she's the most valuable actor that's there. But I think from a character standpoint, it's Abed. Troy's great.
Okay, are you done? Can I move on now?
Yes, God, please.
This is really fun. This is honestly one of my favorite parts of doing the show is then bouncing off other people, their thoughts, and how we can lightheartedly argue and bully Steven over opinions is a lot of fun. And to wrap this thing up, I'd like for each of you to tell us, podcast or otherwise, whatever you're working on right now, where people can find you and it. And maybe if you have any parting words for me and Steven as we move on to the troubled waters of season 4.
Here, I'll let them go last because they are more important. I run the Communities account. We promote all these people. They are fabulous. If you can't see the video right now, know that the 4 people I'm looking at, I love dearly. They're my favorite people, part of the group of my favorite people that I get to spend time with. I'm not counting myself. I'm not a narcissist. Not Jeff, damn it.
I figured you were counting yourself and not Steven. Personally.
I thought he left you out, Zach, because you tried to leave him out of the.
I want both of you to think what you're thinking.
You're both right.
You're both right. In the end, yeah. No,
parenting.
I am just lucky enough to help run the Communities account, which is the account that helps connect all of the fandom as best we can with every bit of fun stuff that's getting created. All the things that you do as podcasters, all the stuff that you do as creators, all the people out there just still drawing Troy and Abed. As of like last week, there's 5 or 10 different people doing it. This fandom's the best, and so I'm just lucky to be the conduit for it, and I appreciate it. But Communities on Twitter, we have Instagram, we have a Pinterest so I can find pictures, but I mean really Twitter's what matters.
When are you getting on TikTok, Matt? When are we going to see you doing some TikTok
We have
dances?
a TikTok account because Keith David has a TikTok account, so we stalk him. He does
I don't
something.
even have a TikTok account.
It exists solely for that purpose.
Okay, Alex, what you got going on?
I've got some warm beer that I've been drinking. So that's something.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that I still got a couple. Matt is drinking a flask. Matt, go for it, Matt.
I didn't call it out earlier, but we were talking about something. He was casually taking a little swig off at the flask.
I saw the Dr. Pepper earlier on, and then it slowly descended into hard liquor, much like it always does at family functions.
Yeah. It's close to Thanksgiving. It's dad and sons.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can check out 6 Seasons in a podcast. I've got 2 episodes left to put out, but I've got more that I could do. I just am lazy. Actually, it's because I've been really pumped to get back on the AP Bio bandwagon, and so I think we've got some folks here gonna join us.
I was gonna say, I think there's new episodes coming out like now with people that are here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Me?
All I know is
Earlier,
I
you
show up.
totally sold Matt short when you said, "Why aren't you on a podcast?" You're on one with him.
Oh, that's true.
I don't think
I know you meant community podcast, but it was still a funny moment.
No, here's this thing. When we started it, Alex was doing everything, and I was just watching an episode of television, making notes. And now I do a lot of when I do the audio
can tell
editing
him.
now.
You can do everything. I'm like,
I
can you
do.
please do this? Because otherwise, this baby ain't getting anywhere.
That's going to be all over the community
not me.
podcast
And
tabloids.
we have
as soon as this
Ed
episode
from
drops.
Save Greendale has joined us to help us finish it out, and I'm just glad I get to watch episodes again with my wife because she's tired of she's already watched all of it and doesn't know why I still wait.
But I think
Yeah.
Jen's gonna come on too, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love
Yes.
AP Bio.
I love
Steven,
Vape
if you ever
too.
watch it,
I
Bond?
watched the first season. I should get back into it.
It's the closest thing to Community we got, honestly. It's not the
Yeah.
same, but
Yeah.
it's got a lot of the same spirit, and it also brings a lot of different things to the table. It's got a really great sarcastic edge to it. I like it a lot.
yeah, it's fun. So, and we're gonna be interviewing Michelle, Jean
Cool.
Philippique. We're going to be interviewing a bunch of, I think, a handful of other folks from the show. So,
Yeah, you heard that. Everyone check out the
So-
AP Bio Rewatch podcast. Good
Yep.
stuff over there. Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll shut up.
And warm beer.
You can't diss AP
No.
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 You got to know where you're ending it when you start it.
It's a fighting. It is hard to think of another one.
You can't disappear. Yeah, it is. It's hard.
You
Jen, what you got going on?
What do I got going on?
Yeah.
Well, funny you should mention season 4. We are about to wrap up our coverage of season
Nice.
4 in the next few weeks. And so you can follow us on Twitter at COMMRewatchPod. Follow us on Instagram at Community Rewatch. I was about to go into my actual spiel. Check out our pinch tweet, which is always our pinch tweet, which you should
Nice.
because it's a great charity organization.
Cool.
But my words of wisdom, I think, would be to go in with an open mind and open heart. Know that the
Always.
people who make the show were tasked with an impossible situation. They did their best under impossible circumstances, knowing that no one would probably ever be happy with what they did.
Yeah.
And so when you go into a work environment knowing that people are going to dislike the thing that you've created for reasons
Totally.
out of your control or
that you
whatever,
can't really argue with,
that
kind
you
of.
can't no, you can't.
Yeah.
You cannot argue with it, by
Yeah.
the way. I'm not arguing with it. It
Yeah.
needed to happen. I think that, you should... That's all that I would say is we went in, and I've been a season 4 defender since it aired, and I came out enjoying most of season 4. There's some things that don't work. There's some duds, as is customary with, as we've just talked about,
Sure.
all of the seasons. But there's a lot of good emotional growth and heart that wouldn't have happened in other seasons. A lot of the things that we were talking about earlier, character development, arcs, and nuances. And I would just say to do that, to go in with an open mind, open heart, know that the people who were there were fighting their darndest to try and make a thing under really hard circumstances. So that's,
And,
that's what
Yeah,
I
and I have
Really
a Google
well
Doc
said.
for you.
You what?
I have a Google Doc for them with all the problems.
So, I
yes,
thought it was
you
going to
do.
be 600 reasons why this is good, and you're wrong.
No, Matt has
No,
a
no,
Google- Matt
it's
has a
no.
Google
There's
Doc.
they have
It's
they,
a good
For
Google
everything.
Doc.
No, it's a list of everything they have to go through. I mean, there's a script that gets rejected, and they have to write a script in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's you. If you listen to Alex's interviews, you'd have caught it.
Yeah, I've heard his podcast is great.
No,
I'm not-
I made a list. Yeah, if
I'll
you've
get
heard
to
of
it
Alex. He's
eventually.
a really nice guy too.
I've listened to the ones
I'll
I'm
get him on
on.
the show sometime.
You listen to the ones you were on.
Yeah.
Well, that's sad for Steven.
Yeah. So Steven's listened to none of it because he's not
He
been
hasn't
on
heard
any
a bit of it.
Alex, did you say it is? Hi.
You've been on my podcast.
I have. It's true.
He's like, I have?
Yeah.
He's been one. Yeah, one. No, there's
You've only
there's a
been on
lot
it
of
once.
there's a lot of stuff they went through. There's the smallest writing. It's no, in defense of season 4, you don't get to 5 and 6 without it. They are
Yeah.
working their butts off. They know the show. That
It's the
people
whole
that are writing
cast,
it.
kind of.
The whole cast. Chevy
Kind
has
of.
a meltdown after the 8th episode that causes a lot of problems. And
Oh yeah.
most of what people know.
What did he do? What did he say?
Yeah.
Let them reveal that when they cover it, and you read the document.
Did it end up in the
but it's
show?
in the Google Doc.
But what
It
people
is
forget
in the
is
Google Doc, actually.
yes, it is in the Google
But
Doc. And
it's-
The important part is what most people say is the reason he got fired is inaccurate. That's not. It's not accurate.
I can excuse racism, but
It's almost like the show was being very meta with that. That's kind of actually.
Okay,
They-
so well then you're
kind of
tiptoeing.
actually it.
Let's get into the weeds. What was the real reason then?
I'll make sure I say this correctly because I know it's a live feed. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm gonna watch. Don't worry.
Wow. Okay.
Because
He
obviously
says
you said it's
during
not the
season,
thing everyone
during
thinks.
the 8th episode, he complains that his character is getting more racist, and when you see 408, you will agree that's a really racist version of Pierce.
Okay.
And so he's complaining
Yeah, I know
about
exactly
it.
what you're talking about.
He complains about it, and in his complaint, he says some variation of sooner or later you're going to have Pierce say the N-word, and he did not say the N-word. He said the word, and the cast and the crew that are there. He thinks he's being an ally in that moment, and they don't freak out over this. It's not pleasant. It's him being rough in the way he's describing stuff, but he's not meaning it to call anybody out. He's just saying the word. It's like sooner or later this
He
is going
should
to happen.
never have
He's
said
like,
that, but
he
the
should have
context
never have
is-
said it. He's too old, too white. Don't do this.
That is
Within
tricky. You don't want to
with-
like stand up for Chevy Chase saying something like that, but it's important to know that.
Yeah, but here's where he ruins it. Within an hour, he gets a call from a reporter asking him to confirm that he said the N-word on the set. When that happens, he is livid.
And that's when he leaves
Because-
the voicemail.
No, not yet.
Okay.
The voicemail had already happened. The voicemail
Okay,
already
okay.
happened at the end of season 3. What happened was he took it out on a cast member because he thought they had told the reporter. That is delusional. There's no cast member would do that. The people there's 40 people on a set, okay? The ones that don't make cast money can get paid by Deadspin and others to tell these type of stories. That's the most likely source for this story. But when he attacked verbally one of his fellow cast members,
do you know which cast member?
I do, and I'm never going to say. When he does this, the rest of the cast says, we're done with you. And I think he basically agreed.
Do you say it was a verbal or physical altercation?
Verbal. Calls the person out.
Okay.
And what happens is he's not in the next episode. He's originally supposed to be Chang's role in Introduction to Knots. They replaced him with Chang. It worked out really well. You see him at the end of Human Anatomy. The week they film Human Anatomy is when on Monday they have the table read where they have an episode they reject. So now they only had 13 episodes that they'd written scripts for. They have 2 weeks approximately to get one completed, and some of that's while it's being shot. Thankfully, they're kind of experienced at writing while shooting.
Yeah.
But Chevy's in walking back in with the group in Intro to Finality. You never see him with the group anymore. There's some 2 shots. It's a green screen. He's not sitting beside Donald Glover in those shots. You can tell they're not looking in the right directions. He's not in the pup. Everything else is ADR. The last scene he actually shoots is where he's Darkest Timeline Pierce. That's the last thing he actually shoots. The rest of it is stuff by himself, or it's his double from behind. So it's not Chevy. So if you see him with somebody, it's just 2 times. It's Human Anatomy and walking in and Introduction to Finality. And when they write the bit about leaving the table, they did not know he wasn't going to be there for that episode when they wrote that bit. It just worked out. Worked out really well.
Wow.
Well, with that, I'm excited to dive into season 4 and to both keep an open mind, but also to look at those things and see what you can and can't see within the episodes of the show. I'm excited. And as far as
it's a good season.
Season 3, I think we've done it, and I'm really glad that I had all of you guys to come hang out with us and to go through it. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks
Good
for
chat.
joining,
Some
everybody.
good hot
It was-
takes.
And Jen, we're happy we finally got to do something together.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Lot
not
of
the
fun.
last time.
Oh, yes, definitely not the last time.
A lot of fun. So thanks to you guys for hanging out with us, and check out the content that all these people make.
Wait, did Jen? You did
I-
say
Yeah.
all your stuff.
Yeah, she
That
did
was
her-
like
Oh, I thought
20
you were going to
minutes
ask,
ago.
did I win the MVP of the podcast? And I think I...
Maybe the MVP was the podcast we made along the way.
As the humble outsider who came in and nailed it, Jen, you did a great job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's how you end a podcast.
There you go.
Bye, guys.
Steven, that was a hoot and a half. I'm so thankful for all our guests that came to hang out with us as we finish off season 3. I really feel ready and mentally prepared to move on to the next thing now, although it hasn't happened yet when we're recording right now, so I don't know how the conversation went. It might have been terrible.
Wow, Zach, what
I
a
hope it
time
was
that
good.
was
I think it'll be good.
among friends, among colleagues,
There were laughs,
and with each other.
There were tears.
Each of us have
A
3
DNA
more training
test
orders
came
than we
through
did
positive
before.
and not the one you'd expect. It was a lot of fun. And we're going to wrap things up. We're going to put that final tie in the last bow of season 3's gift wrapped
There we go.
package.
I thought we were doing a graduation thing. Is it Christmas
Well, yeah,
now?
I think you get Christmas at graduation.
Yeah, you get
Throw in a
Christmas.
little bar mitzvah or something. This was a really great way to put season 3 to bed, and now we move on to new showrunners, new writers, kind of a new community in season 4. And if you guys want to get involved with season 4, our first episode, History 101, you can send in your trivia, your favorite funny moment, and your MVP to can'tdisappointpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to read it out on the show. And if you want to support the show, help it go further, check us out at Patreon, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. Steven, where else can the people find us?
You can hit us up on the old Twitter for those who are over the age of, I don't know, 12. And we... Yikes. Don't know where I was going with that. But we're over on Twitter at...
Notice how
You
we're
Can't
much
Disapod.
weirder before
Yeah.
the guests show up.
Right? We're over on Twitter at You Can't Disapod. We're over on Instagram at Can't Disappoint Podcast. And we are on Facebook and YouTube under the name of the show, You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. And disappoint is spelled correctly in all those places, except
Yeah.
Twitter because it's Disapod. But you know what I mean. You know what to do.
Steven, look at you. The days of you needing to be reminded and me edit around that, all of our plugs. And you just know them like a champ. You can riff on them now. Look at you.
I know. I'm getting better and better.
Well, Steven, let's hold our hands tight together. I want to feel your fingers in between mine as we
they're there.
step off into the sunset towards a new dawn and a new day for Community. Everyone, thanks for supporting us. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks to all our incredible guests for joining us on today's podcast. From inside the Dreamatorium, Black Lives Matter, and what? Say something funny. We love you so
Rob
much.
Schraub.
I'm Zach,
I'm Steven.
and we will see you next season.
Toodaloo.
Happy
That
almost
rhymes.
Thanksgiving. This comes out right before Thanksgiving. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Bye, guys.
Turkey
You
lurkey.
Scams. Goodbye.
Bye.